Hey y'all, welcome back. I think in this video we're going to get this Z1-R engine running for the first time since she come back from the engine builder. I'm going to do my best to get that done. I got a lot of work to do to get it to that point. I'm going to show you some of it right now. Okay, so I probably should start really quick bringing you up to date on where we're at, because the last video just showed me putting the main wiring harness in and doing some connections and showing you how to utilize the wiring diagram, some common sense, the old wiring harness if you have it, and you know, whatever other material that you have to figure out what wiring goes where. Now, so since then, we'll go over on the other side here in a second, but since then I got the coils installed. These are 3 ohm Dyna coils. The coils that were in it before were the OEM ones, even though it had a Dyna pickup. Those are rated at like 3.4 to like 4.2 ohms on the primary being here. These are 3 ohms on the primary, but I'm pretty sure they're going to work with this Dyna setup. There's no numbers delineating what this is for me to look it up, but it's a standard Dyna, and I've had these coils on other setups with the exact same pickup, so I'm pretty sure it's going to work no problem. These were tough to get in here because when I show you on the other side, you'll understand a little bit better. There's just not a lot of real estate on this particular frame to do this. I don't remember this much trouble on the other KZ1000s that I've worked on like this. But anyway, we got them in. I had to fabricate a special bracket to offset the front so it's forward more and over. Kind of see that right there. And doing that brings me to this outside hole to get me a little bit more clearance away from the this is the impulse terminal from the pickup down below. Okay, this is your power coming in and then the pulse terminal. That's why this is covered with shrink tubing, because I originally had it over here and I didn't want it to be that close. I mean, it was like less than a millimeter away, so I said, no, that's too close. So we come up with this and it moved it over, pushed this forward, and what that does on the other side, it kind of allows this mess to get inside there, this big boot with all the connectors that you saw that were kind of loose before, that come off the handlebars and the main harness or harnesses up there. Really, they're the wiring from the actual handlebar controls themselves for the most part. And yeah, so we got them all in. We're going to test fit a tank. This is not the tank that's going on it. It's a spare tank my customer had. I asked him to bring it over. He did. I've been waiting on the tank dampers, the rubber doodads to come in. I got those now, so we're going to stick those on. I slipped this tank on. I slipped it in just a tip and just for a second yesterday to see if it would clear. I got to put the bumpers on so it'll be in the right place, or the dampers rather, but it seemed to clear all this wiring no problem, because again, there's just not a lot of real estate in here. So this is not all wire tied down. I don't have the proper wire ties that I want. I got to find those, the OEM style that are kind of with a little ratchet type dealio on them. But right now this is going to have to do and keep us, somewhat organized as far as wiring goes. So I have the main power off of that yellow with the red with the 2 females that go to each coil. That's the main power. And we have all this hooked up as you saw. I've got the starter hooked up. I have not cut that down. I'm going to leave that long. I have a reason for it, which I'm not going to cover right now, but it has to do with the plastics. I want to see where either plastics and a chain guard falls before I start cutting this thing up. I just want to leave it long right now. Longer is always better, so I'm told.
That's what she said.
Anyway, this is the side that the battery goes into. I just got I got a new battery terminal, a new ground terminal from Z1-Parts.net, Z1 Parts, whatever that company is out in California. They're laying over there on the other side. We got to open that package up and we got to get those installed with a battery. So really what we have to do initially is verify all the electrical's good. I don't see the possibility of it being bad because everything lined up color-wise. But we're going to hook a battery up to it. I'm going to disconnect the pickup down below from this just in case. And I'm going to start metering connections and see if we get a start impulse on the starter solenoid here, and I'll take the starter off for now, you know, when we do that, and then see what, you know, we got. We actually don't even have to hook up, well, actually, I think we do, yeah, we have to hook up battery power to it because it taps off to get power for this. I think it taps off, goes out, comes back in, and then allows it to fire when you press the ignition switch, the start switch up there. Not 100% sure of that. We'll disconnect this temporarily and hook the battery up over here, and then we'll give it a, like I said, we'll give it a test as far as the electrical goes. After that, I got to set the carbs up. I'll do that all off camera because you see me do a bunch of carbs. I'm going to set the carbs up on my carb rack, and I'm going to go through them again, and I'm going to put fuel to them. I'm going to do a service fuel level check. I don't even think that's necessary on the round slides, but on the CV carbs, like on the GPZ and stuff, you do that. I want to see where the fuel is in the float bowls with the little clear plastic tube. I got a video on that. If you look it up in my playlist, in my video library, you'll see that. I'll try to remember to link to it. And that way I can verify that there's going to be no potential chance for overflowing these carbs into this engine. I cannot take that risk with a brand new engine coming back from an engine builder. What we're going to do is we're going to follow his instructions, his printed instructions, to the letter, as far as the oil he wants, the oil additive he wants, and the steps to get this thing fired up. That way I'm absolved essentially of all liability in case there's a leak. The last engine he did, there was a leak from the #1 base gasket. It was pissing out pretty bad. The engine had to come out and go back to him, and he did take care of it, you know. But so I want to make sure I do everything exactly right, that the way he says. We're going to video that to document it, and then we'll get it fired up hopefully later on. All right. But first we got to verify the electrical. Like I said, off camera I'll look at the carbs. But oh yeah, let me show you over here what we're going to do for exhaust. This is not. I got other things to tell you about on this too, but it may be too long for this video regarding the swing arm. You're going to love this. Anyway, obviously I have an exhaust bolted up. This header is, I don't know what it's from, but it's obviously for this bike it fits. These that he brought over, I forgot what they're called, the collars, whatever, that bolt up to the studs and push these pieces of metal in up against the flange. These things are flared rather at the end, and that flare gets pushed up by these pieces of metal, pushed by this and the nuts rather on the studs up against the exhaust donuts. Okay, now I got all that in. The trouble is these were too thick, and even after I put them in, I got a couple of threads on and started to kind of crush in that exhaust donut a little bit with each one. There just wasn't a whole lot of thread engagement, so I had to pull it back off again. I set these up in the mill with a what is it called, a V-block, big V-block, and fly cutted them. I fly cutted them. Yeah, I used a fly cutter, and I thinned them out by 3 millimeters. So each one fits nice. The surface finish looks good. I'm just going to leave them like that, and the thread engagement is perfect. All right. So yeah. Anyway, let me go ahead and get you set up. We'll hook a battery up to it. We'll get these. There's the terminals down in there hooked up. Let's get to this right now. All right, folks. Here's the hot side from Z1.net. Now you see here, of course, the red goes on the bateria. This goes on the starter solenoid. This is your main power that comes off the battery for B+ constant. That'll actually go into this guy right here, which is this red with a white. So this is your main input for your power that goes to the main harness for all the other functions on the bike, the ignition, you know, the lights and so forth. I kind of was wishing this was a little bigger because this wire is a little bit bigger. But current draw wise, I think that'll be adequate. Not 100% sure, but again, this is you know, what it's supposed to be. Now this has a twofer on it, so you know, you can bifurcate off into a different power if necessary, but I don't see another one that comes off this harness for that. So we're just going to hook into that, and this might be, you know, for a different KZ1000 or a different Kawasaki or something like that, that you have two different powers on. I don't know, you know, I just don't know. I don't see another power, so if something doesn't work, we'll look for one. As far as the ground goes, this is definitely the one you want because it has 2 ground wires that come off of the main here. This is the side that would go up to the bateria because it has this male bullet which actually goes up to this ground right here, which is your main, one of the main grounds for the wiring harness. The other one is right up there. I was talking about that before, and it has this loop, Guadalupe, right there, that's going to go there as well. So essentially it helps to ground the frame because you don't necessarily going to get a good solid ground through the engine mounts. If it was only through the engine mounts, you might have a ground problem, so this brings that ground up there. I was going to try to make these. I was actually going to put one of those in. I didn't even look at the wiring yet, and said I'm going to go ahead and put a frame ground into the battery, but you know, this already has that. The old harness, you know, the old wiring rather, looks like it went, you know, under the water for about 4 years, so that was absolutely no bueno. So we're gonna hook this up, get the positive done first, and then we'll hook up the ground carefully, and then we'll see what. Hopefully, no smoke comes out anywhere. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, if I can get this video up in time, it's going to be the last one for a little while. I got to go out of state for some family business, and so I'm going to be out of state for almost 2 weeks. So naturally, I'm not going to be able to film anything because I'm not going to even have a motorcycle or anything with me. This is strictly family business that doesn't involve any power sports. So dog's going with me, so that's fun. Gonna go help my mom up north for some stuff with my brother. And so that's going to be a while before I can get back here and get into any other filming. So I'll just let you know that ahead of time, that again, we're going to be doing some stuff. A nice shot on my elbow, I bet. We're going to be doing some stuff outside the shop here, outside the state even. So if you're going to come steal shit, you know, at least you know, close the door when you're done. Just be courteous if you're going to come rip stuff off. All right, we'll get this hooked up. I don't want to take any chances of this starting to spin the motor right now. There ain't no oil in it yet. There ain't no oil. Of course, there's no ground on it either, but still, I'm taking it off. We ain't done that side yet. Yeah, so that's the news for that. As far as that swing arm goes, this will essentially be the third change if you count the original one, which I believe is still out for powder coating. I don't know what he's doing that for, but we are. Why is that? You know, they didn't make this so good. Okay, that's good. All right, good enough. Yeah, he decided to pick up a widened swing arm that goes with a widened wheel. I mean, I'm talking, I'll show it to you later if we can get to it. I'm talking a big one. I'm talking a big fat wheel. You know, they put too much, they put what do you call it? The shrink wrap, not shrink wrap, shrimp tubing, yeah, down too far, and that's interfering with the connection, with the connection. All right, that's better. Let's get back to this. I think this battery's a little too tall. It fits length and width, but it's too tall. It's a 15L. It's supposed to be like a 14 or something, but it does fit, and it's charged. It's good. So we're going to use her. We'll get the right battery if necessary in the future. This one appears to be a little too tall. I don't know. I'm going to go look it up. Like I said, a lot of stuff going on and don't have a lot of time to do extra stuff. In fact, yesterday I was out on the VFR. I did a 911 ride yesterday, and that still runs like shit. I thought I have I had corrected some issues with higher or mid-range RPM, light throttle breaking up, and it's just as bad as it's always been. So this is going to be another video maybe. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but we got to take the carbs back off again, and I'm also going to throw a little parts cannon shot at it. We're going to put new coils on it, and a different regular rectifier, which you saw from the video. I relocated that one. That's a standard, transistor type, I guess, or a triac type. And I ordered a MOSFET type from the coils and the regular rectifier from Rick's Motorsports up in New Hampshire. And so we're just going to shotgun the coils because some of the primaries on the coils are out of spec. Secondaries are in spec. The spark plug wires are super stiff, super hard. Wish I was. And so we're just going to shotgun that. And then we'll deal with an issue in the carburetors. I think I know what it is, and I think it's something I did. But that's all I can really go with into that, is right now, because we got to deal with this. But that thing is just not running right. And running lean at a higher RPM, mid-range RPM, at light throttle, that ain't good. Okay, you can do some damaged that way if it's too lean, especially on one cylinder. We'll know it when we take the tank off and all the other stuff we got to get out of the way to get the carbs out. That way we can pull the spark plugs again. I'll pull the spark plug, we'll read the plugs. If I have one plug that's, I think it's just one cylinder is dropping. If I have one plug that's really, you know, bright, like looks like it's running lean, then obviously that's that cylinder. But if it's a misfire, then that one plug will be sooty. So either way, we can read the plugs and get a really good idea as what's going on. All right, so there's the positive. Let's go over to the other side. Well, actually, we can hook this up now. No, we're not going to hook that up yet. Let's leave the power off to the main harness until we get the ground hooked up. Oh, I tell you what, guys, it's just sometimes there's just not enough time in a month to get crap done. There just isn't. Should put a locker on this. I'll do that at a different time. The ground is down here underneath here. In this case, he put a cap bolt, which is nice. He always does that. This is a main engine ground. We'll just put that in for now and just leave it the way it is, because yeah, we'll deal with that another time. It should probably stay anyway, because that's tight. Shouldn't be any sparks. There's nothing hooked up to the harness. Better not be. I was disappointed to see the Queen pass too. For all my British viewers, as a big fan of the Queen. Actually, I should say I am still a big fan of the Queen. Not I was. She, you know, anybody, you know, from the monarchy in that particular position during World War II that was a truck mechanic, okay, is okay by me. That is not going to reach. Pretty sure that goes there. I'm going to have to modify that. I'm almost positive it goes up there. See, the thing is, the one that came off doesn't have that. This is the one that came off the ground side. You see how bad that is, though? It only has the one with the bullet connector on it. So it never had that before. So I'm going to extend that, but right now we'll put it up here temporarily. You know, it's only temporary unless it works. And then, no, naturally we're going to fix that, but you know, I don't have to grind off. I'm not going to grind off the powder coating up here because the threads are clean. So we're going to make a good connection into the frame through the fastener itself, at least for now, as far as you know. So now we'll go ahead and plug in our ground on the wiring harness side. All right, so that's all hooked up. Let's go to the other side now. Hook up power to it. I got to get the ignition switch hooked up, and what was that? And I pinned it out, I repinned it out because they too look like they were at the bottom of the ocean for 40 years. So that's all ready to go. So let me get the ignition switch plugged in, and we'll hook up some power, make sure there's no smoke being let out. Then we'll start checking and make sure we've got functionality on the harness. All right, contact. I'm getting hot. That's good. All right, just, you know what, just for shits and giggles, since we're disconnected here off the starter from the starter motor. Again, I don't have any oil in this. I'm not going to crank it over until I do. I'll turn the ignition switch on. See what happens. Nothing. All right. Oh, kill switch is off. The guy that redid these switches didn't really do a good job. Nothing. Nothing. What did I do wrong? All right, so we have our first non-matching plug socket debacle. I want to hook up the lights here, you know, to see the neutral light and so forth come on. That would go to one of these 9 pins here. It'd be this one right here, it looks like, because not all 9 of these are pinned out, and on this they are. Plus the wire colors match up, but the plugs don't. Okay, that plug does not match up to this plug. This one is a different style plug. I'll show you the one that goes to, but you can verify, you can see the wire colors right here. Get you in a little bit better. Yeah, you can see the wire colors are pretty good. They're right. Green with a red, green with a red, green and gray on the end closest to us. Then in the middle we have a red with a black, red with a black, yes, and then blue with a red. So that's the right connector, but here's the problem. Yeah, this is the right connector for it, this guy right here. Now these tabs out here snap into something, I don't remember what, like plastic or something, but or a feature on the fairing to hold it in place, but the main 9-pin job is different. So to solve this, what we need to do, because I really would like to get some lights on this and see if we're getting a neutral light come on, I'm gonna have to pin this out with the proper plug. I have to replace this plug. So I'm gonna do that off camera real quick, and then we'll plug it in and make sure we got power. I want to see that light up. Like I said, it's going to help me diagnose some stuff, because right now I'm not getting anything. I'm not sure why. Just to show you something on this, here's the plug that came off, and I always make a reference as to what side when I make my drawing that I'm looking at. So this is the back of the plug, and that's the little tab on the top, and then I make my reference. Well, this one has a tab on the side, so you can't use that as a reference. So I just put this as T for top, and then just started left to right the same wiring, so it goes gray, green, and then what is that, green with a red. So gray, green, green with a red, and then followed them all up. So what we'll end up having to do is pin out the other one too, because the other side doesn't have the little retainer for the clip, but it does fit. So for right now we can just do this. Plug it in because I want to see some lights. Hopefully the bulbs aren't burned out. Also want to have an oil light to go out when things starts up, so this will hopefully provide that for us. Morning folks, we are not only hours later, but a day later. It's the next morning, and after I shot that last footage where I was having some trouble and not getting any response out of the starter solenoid or pretty much anything else, I turned camera off and basically, committed back to drinking. No, I'm kidding. I kept looking into this, and it's all good now. I'll show you here in a minute. There's something that I missed that was stupid. I'll show you that too. But a couple other things that are somebody else's fault. Well, at least one thing. Now, here's the ignition switch. I should have replaced this. That's my fault. But my customer's budget is limited, so I'm trying to reuse as much as possible. And so I took this, the switch wasn't passing any current, or unreliably at least. Because what I was doing, I was metering up the red with the yellow, actually up in here. That's going to be a main power that feeds a lot of the circuits, or pretty much the main circuit as far as the ignition goes. And I was getting intermittent power, so I took the switch apart. And how you do this is you bend these little tabs out of the way and take the restraint off, and then you can pop these switches apart and clean them, which is what I did. And then got it back together. The detent balls on this side of it are a pain in the ass because the little springs, but you grease them up real good, they'll stay in place, and you can get it back together. So the switch works fine. Then I was having trouble with a fuse blowing, and it was I'll show you what happened here. The fuse in here for this main white wire, and I'll trace the wiring pathway as far as the circuit goes here in a second. Because it's kind of important to the whole situation. So I was blowing a fuse in here for this white wire, and I couldn't figure out why. But then I wasn't getting any consistent power down for the ignition side, which is this side of or I should say this end of the yellow with the red. And I was getting, again, inconsistent still up here even after fixing the switch. So then I looked at the wiring diagram and traced down the engine stop switch that's on the top here. All right, now that engine stop switch wasn't that tight before. It was real sloppy. And I said, well, I don't know how that can be, because my customer sent these out to a guy, the whole handlebars and everything. Somebody on Facebook or something that redoes these things. My understanding was that that individual was going to redo any of the switches and the functionality of this. Well, that didn't happen apparently, because I ended up taking this apart. And the other thing is, he only provided one screw on each side. I don't know why he did that. I mean, I question his competency, whoever's doing this. But anyway, I took this out, the top half off. You broke this in half, and then took the switch out, which is pretty easy to do. There's just a couple of terminal wires, and then there's one screw that goes up into the switch to hold the switch actually into the cell, not the cell, the switch casting here. Okay, so I got that switch apart, and it took me a while because that switch was all froze up on the inside. There's little springs that hold the contacts against two pins. That provides you the continuity through the switch to actually do what it's supposed to do. These two are just null, you know, left and right are off, but the center is that continuity. And then there's a detent ball with a spring. That was completely froze up. I had to dig that out. Finally got that out. It took me about an hour and a half just to fix that switch. Now, I can buy new switches, but again, we're on a limited budget here, and I'm going to have to weigh the labor on that as opposed to what I would have paid to buy the switch, but I'm probably going to replace that anyway at some point. But it works really well. So I corrected that continuity issue for the ignition, and I kept blowing fuses. And I went through like 3 or 4 of these little fuses. They're these little short guys like this. I'm going to pick some more up today. And it was on this white wire. Now this white wire starts here. Actually, no, it doesn't. It starts over here. What happens here is you have your main white that comes off of the battery power. So that's, you already saw that when I put that new battery cable on. It taps into this yellow with a red. White with a red. See that? I'm really screwed up here. All right, now this white with a red is just a little jumper that goes over to here. So this one is the same as this one. So you got 2 and 2. And so what this does is this provides battery power to this white wire and this white with a red. Okay, so what comes out of there, being that it's just a jumper from here to here, is this white wire which goes up to the rectifier, and that's proper according to the wiring diagram. And then the other one out to this white with a, why am I saying yellow? This white with a red, which goes up into the box. And when it comes out of the box, it comes out of the box as a white. And that white wire goes all the way up the harness to this white wire right there. Actually, there's 2 white wires. They call it battery 1 and battery 2. That looks like a white with a red, but it's not. It's just got some gunk on it. So these 2 are connected to this white wire that is fed by this white with a red and up through the fuse box again on that fuse. That fuse comes out as white and again runs up the harness. So that's your main power for the switch, battery 1 and battery 2. And then when you put the switch in position 1, there are certain terminals that are energized, and then position 2 is that park thing, you know, where it just turns the lights on and the ignition's off. So it's the position 1, obviously, that we want for providing ignition, voltage and current, and doing other good stuff on the bike once that stuff is on. So I kept blowing a fuse on that white wire, and I could not figure out why. And I spent a considerable amount of time, and I traced and traced and traced. And the one thing I found was that it was the brown wire that was causing the problem. So because I ended up tapping into this brown wire at a different location, and then going to ground with a continuity checker, and this brown wire was going to ground. And I'm like, why would that brown wire be going to ground? Because what that brown wire does, it provides power for a number of things. For example, it provides power for the neutral switch, and it provides power for different lights and stuff that are going to be eventually on here. So it's almost like a common power rail, if you will, or power wire circuit. It also provides power for the horn. And this guy, now these are insulated, this guy I didn't see was hanging down here. And it was just in the right position where the terminal was touching ground, and I didn't see it. And that's what was causing the problem. This one damn little wire hanging down, shorting out the circuit when you turn the ignition on, because again, the white is feeding the entire switch, and then that brown was a dead short. So once I figured that out, I said, you gotta be kidding me. And so this is what we got. Let me put you back in the stand. Okay, so ignition on. We do have start now. So that's working fine. And we have a neutral switch, or neutral light, which is over here. You can see that's illuminated too, so that works good. Now I don't have an oil light, and I'm not really sure why, because I think the oil pressure sensor is bad, or it's problematic. Oil pressure sensor is down there. It's on the return side at that where the oil cooler lines go. And I took that out and I'm playing with it, and if you take this and you go to ground with it, it'll light that light up. You can't really see it over here because I have this on the other side, but it will do it. You gotta trust me. Trust me. And it doesn't seem to be working correctly. And I kind of wanted that when I first started up. I want to see the light on and then go off. So if that's not going to work, I'm going to hook up a oil pressure test rig, and I'm going to test the oil pressure when it first fires up, because I got to make sure that this thing is coming up on oil pressure. So I guess we'll do that. Fortunately, I can't do any of that until I get some oil cooler lines, because I really do want to hook that up. I want this set up as it would be set up if it was running down the road, okay? And the oil lines that I have, the Lockhart ones, the original Lockhart oil filter, oil cooler ones, are kind of crappy, and I want to replace them. And it's hard to find this hose in the right size. It really is. And so I ordered some stuff off the Amazonian, and it's not right. It's too big. Even though these are 3/8, the hose should be sized smaller. I think 11/32 is the size it needs to be a push fit on this barb, and also up here on where the oil cooler ends are here, the fittings for that. They're just press fittings with a hose clamp, with a hoe clamp. And so I can't use that. So I have two choices. I'm either going to have to reuse the Lockhart stuff, at least temporarily. The ends are kind of crappy. I think there's enough length. If I took a 1/2 3/4 inch off of each end, I think we can reuse it, at least to get it fired up, and then replace them later. I did order some stuff from not AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts. I'm going to go pick it up later. That looks like it's the right stuff. So transmission cooler lines, essentially, the rubber hose. So it's 11/32 ID, which is about 343 thou. These are 375, so it should be about right. I think, but they're not easy to find as far as the right hose, and you can't find the Lockhart stuff. You Google that, and the only Lockhart you get is like Lost in Space shit that comes up, you know, from June Lockhart and things like that, you know, the actress. Yeah, so this this has just been, you know, one fight after another. Now this one's my fault, but these are not my fault. Now I expect when somebody does this kind of work that everything's supposed to work. And I don't think this individual went through any of these switches based on the way the the engine stop switch looks. I don't think that they went through any of them. 'Cause I did notice that this was real sloppy. Now she's nice and tight because I fixed all that and we have good continuity through it. But yeah, I think all he did was clean them and paint them and put them back together, because you know it's just not good. You know, it's not good work in my opinion. I don't know if my customer paid for the work, but in my opinion, he should get some money back on this, especially since we're missing 2 of the screws, and I don't have those. So yeah, it is what it is. These are for the pickup down below. I'll hook these back up before we fire it up. So the next step here is I'm going to do this off camera. I'm going to, over on the bench there, I'm going to get those carbs, like I said in an earlier part of the video, and verify that their float levels are good, that they're not going to leak or bypass, and then check the service fuel level in them, and then we can stick the carbs on. Figure out, I want to get the oil lines done first though, because they're a lot easier to get at without the carbs in here. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that, but at least I got to get the carbs to a point where I know they're going to be fine to do a first start on this. And like I said before, I absolutely positively can't have any situation where these things are bypassing and flooding these cylinders out. So we're going to verify and triple verify that those carbs are fine. And then we'll put the carbs on, or get the oil lines, get the carbs on, and at that point I think we can do a test fire. Hopefully still in this video, but who knows. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and shut you down and pick it up after I get that crap done. I'll show you what I'm doing in regards to this service fuel level test, because I want to document some of this that I actually did it. So we're going to just do this one. Let's see, these would be 3 and 4. 3 and 4 were okay, but number 1 and 2 were high. The float level was high, probably because I changed out 2 of the float valves and, you know, manufacturing variances of aftermarket shit. So yeah, that's probably why. So what we want to do is we want to measure the actual fuel level by looking at through a clear tube off the drain to the side of the carb. What we want to achieve here, service fuel level is 3 millimeter plus or minus 1. So 3 millimeters is about 1/8 of an inch. So if you measured down 1/8 of an inch from the base of the carb here, you'd be about right here at this feature of the float bowl. That's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, but close enough, certainly within a mil. So I made this little tool here. I've had this for a while. I had another one, and that's why I was going to use both of them at the same time. That way it's easier to do because there are no drain screws on these carbs like the CVs, where you hook a tube up, turn a screw, watch the fuel, close it, and then you make less of a mess. You actually have a plug like this at the bottom with an O-ring seal. So it makes a little bit of a mess, but on the other hand, you only have 2 carbs here because they're 2 separate inlets. So you're not messing around with 4 carbs with fuel in them. You're only doing 2 at a time. So that's pretty good. So what I do is I screw my tool in. That sounded good. And then you can hold your, you just got to hold your tubing up to the edge here. But you got to get all the air out of it. The air will throw you off. And so I'll show you what I do for that. I simply just turn the fuel on and then let some run through the hose. And I have the fuel hooked up out of shot right now. You got to leave it on for this. So now we got some fuel running, and now we just pick it up and we go here and we let it settle out where it wants to go. And we are right there now. So I readjusted this one. So if you look at it straight down, it's kind of hard for you to see that. Let me see if I can drop you down a little bit so you get a better idea. So if you look through it this way, you can see that that fuel level is pretty much where it needs to be, right at that edge, you see? Okay, so now I've documented that, now I'm happy. Okay, so all the carbs have checked out now as far as float level goes. You don't actually do a measured float level as I'm showing you right now, you do a service fuel level. And they passed a pressure test beforehand, flipped upside down. You've seen me do that a number of times, so I'm not going to go into that too far. When you do these service fuel level tests, you want the carbs as level as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want them to be fairly level. So the final test is going to be a static fuel overflow test. And that's pretty simple. We could do all 4 at the same time. I do need to rig up a 1-to-2 fuel line, but I don't really need to do that right now. I'll just do these separately. And all we're going to do is, with everything buttoned up, we're just going to turn the fuel on and let it sit for a while. So right now we're testing 1 and 2 right here. Get off. Right there, 1 and 2. We're just going to let the fuel pressure come in from the can at gravity pressure, and make sure that when it's sitting like this, they don't overflow. So usually I let it sit about 15-20 minutes on each side, in this case each side, or if it's a rack with a continuous fuel rail between them, then I just do all 4 at the same time. So right now we're just going to do these 2. I'll come back and show you the disposition of that, tell you the disposition of it, but I'm quite confident these carbs are going to pass. And then we'll drain them, set them aside, and I got to go down and pick up that oil cooler line so we can get this even one step closer to firing up. Okay folks, I had to take a couple hours and go do some yard work. We're back at it now, and we are getting real close. A couple more things to do and then we're going to fire it up. I've got the fuel system set, carbs are in obviously, band clamps are tightened down. I have the 1-to-2 fuel delivery with a T up there, actually a Y, and then we'll hook the fuel up to it when that time comes. All the wiring's hooked up, as you know. I got the pickups hooked back up, so I just unplugged them for different testing purposes. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to go over what the engine builder wants us to do as far as oil. I haven't added any oil yet. What the engine builder wants is essentially his preferred oil is Castrol GTX 2050 with a 4-ounce bottle of ZDD Plus. Okay, that's that zinc additive. Now I have both of those. I got the oil that he wants and the additive. So I'm going to add the oil and the additive, get it up to probably the very top of the window. And then what we're going to do is pull the plugs because I want to test for spark before I fire it up anyway. So I want to pull the plugs so it'll spin over quicker. And unfortunately, I don't have the right adapter to hook up my oil pressure gauge. I guess I got to make a couple of different ones. But what we're going to do is we are going to just spin it over for a while to circulate some oil through the oil cooler, which the lines are all hooked up, of course. That stuff from an auto parts store worked out really well. I really like that. It's 11/30 seconds ID. That's just under 3/8. So we'll get this spinning around for a while without the plugs in it, just to get the oil circulating and fill up the filter, fill up the, pass the oil through the cooler, push any air out of it back into the block, because it'll just go into the drain side, or return side rather, and then we'll take it from there. We'll fire her up. I still have the cover off over here because I'm going to get my timing light handy really quick, because I want to check the timing on it as soon as we even start cranking it. I might do that while we're pumping the oil up and take a look at what the timing is. Because it's a wasted spark, we want to do cylinder 1. We just have to hook up to 4, because 1 and 4 are companion, and then 2 and 3. Okay, so it's really easy to do. So what we're going to do right now is get the oil in her. Ugh. You don't need me to do this. See me do that, I guess. Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a time lapse. Now, what the engine builder also suggests, if you don't use 2050 Castrol GTX, is the T4 Rotella, Shell Rotella, which is 5W40. And so that's what I use. What is it? Is that 540? Yeah, something like that. That's what I use in everything that I have. So let's go ahead and add some oil to it. I know that the drain plugs in and tight. I think it is. Probably about halfway filled up, so we're going to go ahead and add this additive, which is this stuff right here, the ZDD Plus. That's what the engine builder wants. It's a zinc additive. It's for, it's in these flat, according to what I've read as well, these flat tappet cams really need the vitamins and minerals that unfortunately EPA doesn't like us to have. So he wants 1 4-ounce bottle poured in with the oil, and that's a 4-ounce bottle. All right, the plugs are out except for number 4. You can see it there. I have it out. It's just hooked up to the wire, because I'm going to ground it with an alligator clip, and we're going to see if we got spark. But I'm also going to put the pickup for the tack for the timing light on there. And when that fires, if we get a timing light impulse, that pretty much says what we need to know anyway, but I want to see the spark quality. I mean, I should check all 4, but I'm just going to use this one as a reference. So the oil's just below the top, that's good, of the window. And all the plugs are out, battery's hooked up. And so we can crank it now. We're going to go ahead and crank it around and see how she sounds when we crank it, pump some oil around, and then see what we got. Ready? Contact. Oh, I got it in the wrong position. Contact. Oh yeah, we got all kinds of spark. Right on the money too. There must be a way to bench set these pickup types. So we're gonna forego that because we got good spark and the timing looks good. All right, cool. Let's do a little bit more. All right, turn the ignition off. You watch your oil level on the window too. When the oil level drops down and it stays down, it's pumped around pretty good. So that's where we're going to go off of, and it's down now. So it's time to top this thing off, put some fuel to it, put the plugs back in, and we'll fire her up. See if she pops. All right, let me get the plugs in, wires hooked back up, and some fuel to it, and I'll bring you back. We'll fire her up hopefully. Fuel's hooked up and not turned on. Spark plugs are back in, the wires are hooked back up. If I did my job right, the firing is correct as far as 2 and 3 coil firing 2 and 3 and 1 and 4 firing 1 and 4. We'll use the emergency stop switch up here as an emergency stop switch. We'll turn the idle down right now just to make sure. Give it some enricher. Turn the fuel on first, why don't we? We know that carbs are not going to overflow. I'm going to clarify something on that later, but it's not the time right now to do it. But we got ignition. We'll give it some enricher. See what happens. Oh. I wonder if I got that backwards. It's white to white. Alright, hang on. It's possible. All we got to do is reverse these. I mean, I got the right wires on them, but sometimes I make mistakes. She's definitely not firing the right carbs at the right time. I mean, yeah, carbs, firing the right cylinders. Try that. That's better. Uh-oh. It's either a problem in the starter or the starter clutch. I kind of doubt it's a starter. It doesn't have a Bendix type. It's got to be the starter clutch. You got to be kidding me. Ugh. Well, there you go, folks. She ain't going nowhere now. Well, might as well not do it anymore because in case there's something slipping on something. Well, there's your answer. Something's wrong. I'm not going to be able to get into it today. Damn it. Cranked over just fine, and then it went to fire, and there's something wrong. Ugh, crap. Take any guesses? Oh, I tell you what, folks. I am about sick of dealing with crap from this engine builder. I mean, this is absolutely unfreaking acceptable. That your stator bolt came loose, and now I gotta tighten it. I gotta go look up the torque spec and figure out what to tighten it to. But Jesus Christ, you know, I knew it. I knew it would sound like that. But all right, well, I don't know if I'll get this video up at this stage or not. That'll be kind of a letdown, huh? So I can't do any more on it tonight. I'm out of time, but I do have a new. I keep a stator cover gasket in stock for this bike, also a stator. So what we'll do is we'll support this so it's not stretched too much, hopefully, and then we'll fix this tomorrow. I got to call my customer and tell him what's going on. I mean, what else is loose in this thing then? If this thing ain't tight, then what else is not tight? I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Now I got to spend an hour and a half scraping this crap off of here. I tell you what, I don't know. I'm not doing any more work for anybody that does any work with this engine builder anymore. I said it last time. I should have stuck to it. So anyway, we'll fix it tomorrow and hopefully finish this video out. All right, guys, so here we are. Next day, got it all set back up. Problem was probably twofold. The bolt not being torqued to spec. Or torqued at all, and the taper, because there's no keyway in there or key, the taper on the rotor that goes to the crank was all full of oil. It was all wet. So somebody intentionally oiled that or put some assembly lube or something on it and then put it together. That's a big no-no. You're supposed to do those dry. Any type of a taper where something spinny goes on is supposed to hold. You do it dry. Now sometimes you'll Loctite the bolt in, but according to the service data, which has two different things. This is one thing I wanted to show you here. When you go into supplements, we're going to go a little bit further in here, and you're going to see that it's going to have torque specs and locking agent guidance. So if you go to page 241, it'll talk about the dynamo rotor bolt, which is the base manual, okay? But this is the supplement for the 1978 model, okay? And torque and locking agent. So no locking agent on the dynamo rotor bolt, yeah. But the torque spec is 51 to 54 foot-pounds. If you look on 241, it'll show you that the base torque spec of the original one was like 19 foot-pounds. So if they use that torque spec, the original one over there, that's probably what happened, or they didn't torque it at all. So I torqued it up to 52 and put it all back together. But that's why you look into these supplements, to make sure that you're putting things together right. As soon as I saw that in the main section, I go, that doesn't seem tight enough for an M10 bolt. And the original one, the original pages showed a locking agent. There was no locking agent on that bolt when I took it out. It was just loose. So doesn't show that in the supplement. So again, supplement, no locking agent, and then around 52 foot-pounds, which is what I did. Got a new gasket in. This is all torqued in. I I didn't see really any oil in there, so what I did was I took the spark plugs out again and cranked it around a little bit more. So in a way, maybe that was good that happened. But then again, it may have happened because we weren't getting good crank speed because that thing was slipping a little bit. Luckily, the end of the crank is fine. I just cleaned it off and cleaned both with brake clean and put them back in. It was fine. So because of that oil that they had in there, it didn't score anything up, but you're not supposed to have that. It's that taper and the friction between the two tapers that hold that in place, plus the torque, axial torque against it. So, all right, we're gonna start this again, see what happens. All right, I think my idle's too low. I kind of figured that yesterday. The way it was behaving when it did try to fire. Get some fuel to her. Everything hooked back up. Oil level's good. We're going to just start it up and then shut it down and recheck that oil level and then top that off. But I topped it off after I cranked it again. It did go down a little bit. So, oh, by the way, I took out the main oil gallery plug and there is oil in there, so it's definitely pumping. Contact. Choke. Alright. Shut the fuel off. Shut the ignition off. Now we're going to let that settle and check this oil again and add a little bit more. But like I said, I verified that it was oiling. Let me set you up a little differently. Go to the back here. And I'm going to take you off the lapel mic because I'm not sure how this mic is going to get the actual engine sounds. Alright, what the engine builder wants, and I'm not going to have time to do that before I leave the state for my trip, is he wants 3 engine startups and run to operating temp and then shut down and cool down. And then so you run it, get it up to operating temp, shut it off, let it cool down. So perhaps overnight, and then you do it 2 more times, and then you retorque the head bolts. Now, I remember that from the last motor. Oh yeah, turn that on. We're going to look at that oil one more time, and then we'll run it a little bit more. And then we'll close this video out finally. The noise you hear is a little bit of rattling with stuff on the lift, which I got to clean off, obviously. But this has been a process, you know. This whole process has really sucked, to be honest with you. But it is what it is, right? I want to check the timing on 1 and 4 and 2 and 3. I can do it both, like I said yesterday, from one side because of the companion cylinder deal. This thing takes 3.7 liters, almost that, because this is 4.7 liters. So let's bring it down to 1 liter left in the thing here, in the jug, and that will be 3.7 on the nose. There we go. Now that should be exactly right. Because again, that jug is a 5-quart job, not a 4. It takes it holds 4.7 rather. Alright, I don't want to get her too hot, so we're going to leave it there, but you know, the carbs are what they are. I mean, they ran on it before, but they're not set up properly, they're not synchronized, so we'll put each one out at one turn and leave it. And then take it from there. But that's it. We're not going to run it anymore. Yeah, right up. Actually, we are up to operating temperature, so we'll just leave it there. So that'll be about 200 degrees at that exhaust. So we'll leave it at this right now. We don't have any air going over it, so that's going to be it. And then we'll let it cool down, and when I get back, be a couple weeks, we'll run 2 more heat and cool cycles through it, retorque the head bolts, and then take it from there. But so far so good, except for oil I spilled putting it in. Everything looks fine. And well, like I said, we'll just leave it there. Carburation, these carbs aren't even going to stay on this thing. So customer's got some different carbs he wants on it. So I mean, I might sync them up and get some pods for it just so I can get it running a little bit better. But other than that, yeah, we're going to leave it. Like I said, we're right at operating temperature now. Oh, and by the way, this one was blue like that when I put them on. See, you make note of that with these used ones. So whatever this was on before, number 1 was running real hot. So that's not us. That was there before. So just wanted to bring that up in case you saw that. Alright guys, that's it on this video. Probably going to be a fairly long one, but it is what it is. This thing's not without drama, as you saw. So again, we'll consider that 1 heat cycle. Got 2 more to do. I'll have to put a sticky note on this thing because I'm not going to get the other 2 done before I get back, and I'll not remember. I got a memory like a sieve. So yeah, and then we'll finish that up a couple weeks and get the head bolts retorqued. Actually, the head nuts, because it's got studs, except for the 2 on the end, the 10 mil ones. And then we'll probably talk to my customer about what carbs he wants to put on it. I think they may be back in. He sent them out somewhere. I don't know. Polishing, whatever. We'll get those on, get some new pods, and then start dialing it in a little bit better. Because, you know, these are the carbs that were on it, these guys. And I don't remember exactly how it ran, but, you know, it did run, except it smoked. Luckily, it doesn't do that now. It seems to run okay. It's running on all 4. And, you know, it's going to be fine for now. You know, we'll have to dial it in later. You know, it's just the way it is. So, like I said, I got to clean up. Well, I didn't say that, but I'm saying it now. I got to clean up. This is an absolute disaster here. And I'm going to drain the carbs. I don't like leaving bikes that I'm working on with any fuel in the carb whatsoever, especially for an extended period of time. I'll drain the carbs and then cover this thing up, you know, with a sheet, keep it from dust and dirt getting on it. And that's where it's going to sit for a while because got to do some traveling with the mutt who's down there. Family business. Unfortunately, no bikes involved. So anyway, speaking of bikes, if you like this kind of content, you need to subscribe to my channel. You need to ring the notification bell. Like the video, share it, you know, do all that good stuff. And you get notified when I put more crap up like this, especially on the Z1-R. Yeah, a lot of drama. Very frustrating. You know, when you pay somebody good money, and I'm going to give you a hint how much my customer paid for this. I said in the other video I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm going to give you a hint. You see that? If that was mint, you could buy 2 of those for what he spent getting that engine done. Based on the current market. Current market, if this was painted all up nice and everything, you know, because I don't have the right body paint on graphics and stuff on it, but let's say it was. You could buy 2 of those in the current market for what he spent having this motor done. So, yeah. You pay somebody to do that kind of work, you expect the work to get done and done right. And it really frustrates me to no end that I got to follow up people and correct their crap when my customers pay good money for them to do the work. So I guess that's the end of the rant and the end of the video. Don't just repair, restore. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.